Yogah Karmasu Kaushalam.
Hi, welcome to the 13th session in our course HRM for non-HR managers. In the previous two sessions, we explored compensation and various ways of compensating employees. In this session, we are going to discuss HR policies. Within that, the topics we will discuss will be 1. What policies are and what is their importance. 2. Types of policies and the process of formulating policies. 3rd, the features of policies which are likely to be effective, and 4th, we will present the challenges faced by managers ahead of implementing HR policies and the ways to overcome those challenges. We will start with the discussion of policies, their meaning and significance. Policies play a major part in management thinking and practice, whether a person is thinking about planning and strategy or HRM or some other function of the organization such as sales or production. Policies used within specific function of the organization may be most widely heard of. For example, an organization may have a policy on the commission payable to its sales force depending on the sales targets and actual sales achieved. Production department may have safety policy. Policies are important for those who formulate the organization's long-term plan and strategy. It is generally known that an organization attempts to define what its vision, mission and goals or objectives are. If you put yourself in the position of a senior manager, would you make a plan first or a policy first? If you say that you will take a policy stand first before making strategic choices, decisions and plans, you are right. At a very large governmental scale, the plans are policy based. For example, Kevin Zheng Zhao, William R. Shiet found that the government in China was managing environment by guiding large projects through policy, which informed the creation of plans. Plans helped design of the programs which were followed by specific projects. The theory of management also indicates that policies are an important influence on the decisions and plans made by the managers. In organization theory, plans of different types are identified. The ones which are relatively longer lasting are called standing plans, while the others that change frequently or periodically are called single-use plans. Contingency plans are the ones which direct action only in specific situations. Standing plans include policies, procedures, and rules. Single-use plans include programs and budget. The evacuation plan in case of fire is an example of a contingency plan. Burke and Litwin in the year 1992, the noted experts in the field of organization development and change have identified policies and procedure as systems which are operational in nature and directly affect individual employees' needs and values. If we focus on the policies as standing plans, they serve as a link between the organization's purpose, vision and mission on one hand and the strategy, budget, operations and programs on the other. Given the interconnection of policies with other important variables which influence organization's performance, we will present the meaning and importance of policies next. For the purpose of this course, we will focus on HR policies. According to Cambridge Dictionary, a policy is a set of ideas or a plan of what to do in particular situations that has been agreed to officially by a group of people, a business organization, a government, or a political party. Oxford Dictionary defines policy as a course or principle of action adopted or proposed by an organization or individual. For the purpose of this chapter, we understand policies as a set of specific guidelines derived from the values and philosophy of the organization its founders or promoters, developed with support of the stakeholders, aimed at enabling desired behavior and restricting undesired behavior that would help an organization realize its strategy when implemented effectively. As such, the policies help the managers in many ways. One is, policies articulate the values adopted by the organization. Second is, policies provide specific guidance to the employees on what to do and what not to do. In this sense, policies facilitate desirable actions while they restrict some others. Third is, backed by the procedure and rules, policies facilitate performance. Fourth is, policies, when communicated clearly, prevent chaos, confusion, and parochialism and help achieve uniformity in decisions. These four functions of the policies make them very significant. In case of HRM function, an organization's HR practices are shaped and guided by the HR policies. It has been established long back that effective HR practices influence turnover, profitability, and market value of publicly traded companies as found by Huselid in 1995. They also have been found to affect profitability of banks as found by Dellery and Doty in 1996, quality and assembly in auto assembly plants as found by McDuffie in 1995, and productivity in manufacturing plants as found by Yoon and colleagues in 1996. Policies are also significant in the sense that they can be difficult to change. Those who have been following an existing policy might resist change. Paradoxically, it is the people who create policies, but once created, it is the policies which control the human behavior. In most contemporary organizations, employees receive HR policy manual. In many organizations, employees sign a document certifying that they have received, read, and understood the policies and that they agree to follow the same. New employees are introduced to the organization's policies during their orientation and onboarding. HR policies provide an overview of how the organization functions and, more importantly, how employees are expected to contribute. Not all policies are written, and there cannot be policy covering every possible aspect of work within an organization. As we will discuss next, the HR policies provide guidelines and directions that facilitate some action while restricting some other. Having an effective HR policy can also save an organization from court matters and loss of reputation. HR policies can be of two types if we consider the legal obligations of an organization. There are several HR policies which are required by law, and every organization must incorporate those policies by law. The example is equal pay for equal work, which applies to all employees and all organizations. Some legal provisions are applicable only in some cases. For example, Payment of Wages Act is applicable only to those employees whose monthly average salary must be lower than Rs 6,500. The Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace about Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013 is applicable to the organizations having 10 employees or more, which are required to have a policy to ensure safety and dignity of women at work. On the other hand, discretionary policies are voluntarily formulated and implemented by the organizations. An example is Staff Advance Policy, Transport Policy, Fast Track Policy. We present an outline of policies which become applicable to the employees at different stage of their association with the organization. At pre-selection and entry phase, typically the policies that may be relevant are an organization's recruitment policy, including campus recruitment policy, probation and confirmation policy, equal opportunity policy, diversity policy, and induction policy, for example. Once the employee joins, The policies that provide functioning support include email and communication policy, privacy policy, travel and accommodation policy, uniform or dress policy or dress code, guest house policy, student internship policy, transport policy, staff advance policy, laptop policy, mobile policy and more. Of course, there will be compensation and reward policies which are acknowledged to be the most influential aspect of core HR policies. Core HR policies also include rewards and incentive policy, diversity policy again, employee referral policy, leave policy, performance appraisal policy, staff advance payment and reimbursement policy, promotion policy, special recognition policy, fast track policy, employee further education policy and more. Disciplinary and preventive policies include discipline policy, anti-smoking and substance abuse policy, counseling policy, grievance policy, sexual and workplace harassment policy, emergency response policy, safety policy and more. Finally, the management of employees' departure is facilitated by policies such as retirement policy, retrenchment policy, charge handover policy, employee release policy and more. Since every organization is unique, HR policies should best fit its needs. Getting employees to read, understand and commit to abide by the policies help both the employee and the organization by saving misunderstanding, injury and legal action. When policy statement is also accompanied by clearly specified procedure and it's supported adequately by rules, implementation of a policy becomes easier. Additionally, the policy statement should lead to clear understanding of consequences of compliance and of non-compliance both. In year 2000, Begley and Boyd wrote about several criteria that help decide whether the corporate values are adequately articulated through an organization's HR policies or not. They mention 8 criteria that managers can use. The first is relevance. A manager here asks whether the current policies are relevant in the prevailing business environment. Second is strategy. The manager checks whether the policies are well aligned with the organization's strategy. Third, the manager checks whether the policies are adaptable to the changing environment. Fourth, thinking about applicability, the manager asks whether the policies are applicable across the organization. Fifth, while thinking about familiarity, the manager checks whether the employees are aware of the existence of the policy. Clarity is the 6th criterion used by the manager who asks whether the HR policies are easy to interpret and apply. 7th is the criterion of boundaries, which helps the managers check whether the policies clarify the bounds of acceptable employees' behavior. Lastly, the 8th criterion of commitment helps manager check whether the employees support the HR policies. Since this course is meant for non-HR managers, we highlight the features or sections found most frequently in the policy documents. 1. The cover page of the policy usually contains information that helps identify the policy title, the date it was released on and the date it is applicable from, its current version number, the committee or the group of persons in charge of making the policy, the designation where the comments or suggestions regarding the policy may be sent, and the date when the revision may be due. Second, the introduction to the policy is a very important segment, usually 1 or 2 paragraphs long. In this part, purpose and aim of the policy are mentioned and the concerned corporate values and philosophy are also presented. The connection between the policy and strategy also can be established here, which can be later reinforced in the policy statement. Third, key terms used in the policy document are defined. Fourth, the scope, who the policy applies to, is defined. Fifth, the main policy statement is often presented in brief statements in sections which are often numbered. Tables, charts, illustrations and annexures are also given. Sixth, exceptions may be defined and guidelines to follow in exceptional circumstances are also mentioned. 7. Procedure related to the policy, rules and related pro forma are also often attached as annexures. Many organizations which have gone paperless have their policy manuals on the intranet. Hyperlinks within the document help the user of the manual access related information such as other related policies and documents and provisions which should be read together or understood in reference with each other. In the last part of this session, we illustrate the steps followed most frequently by managers when they formulate HR policies. 1. The first is usually the need for HR policy. The managers proactively also search for HR policies when employee conduct requires policy guideline, and if the issue is not one time or trivial, the need for the policy may be felt. For example, if an employee working in a knowledge industry or an industry where the employee's knowledge, creativity or abilities are of strategic importance, and if talented employees have time to spare for a part-time or parallel project with another organization or a client, should the organization allow them to work for someone else? HR managers in organizations such as universities, architect firms, software firms routinely deal with this issue. On one hand, there is a threat of unauthorized disclosure of confidential information, use of organization's resources for another organization's work, and employees' attention and effort getting divided. On the other hand, there is benefit to be derived from employees' learning and exercise of creativity, skill, and competence, keeping the employees motivated and excited about the work they do, and retaining highly talented employees whose capabilities are currently not fully utilized by the organization. Some organizations take a policy decision not to allow such parallel work. In several universities, professors can accept consultancy projects for fees, part of which is shared with the university. Private sector companies allow employees to work for another organization under some conditions. For example, there should not be a conflict of interest. 2. Articulate the organization's values and put them in perspective with the organization's strategic requirements. Connecting the policy issue with the organization's values and strategic imperatives helps identify the criteria of evaluating alternatives and generate alternatives. At this stage, in-depth information is collected about the policy issues, alternatives, best practices, and internal and external trends. The third step is that individuals or a group is identified and made responsible for developing the policy. After consultation and referring to information collected, a draft is developed. Professional experts may also be consulted. In the fourth step, the draft is placed for consultation and review. Not all policies may be subjected to consultation or review other than by the appropriate unit or authority. The review may not be organization-wide, depending on the policy issue and other organizational contingencies such as the nature of the policy issue, culture of openness, trust level, sensitiveness of the issue, and so on. In the fifth step, comments and suggestions are discussed, debated, and the draft is finalized. For some policies, it may be necessary to invite comments and suggestions from bodies such as trade unions. They should be given adequate time for the study of policy before their comments become due. In the sixth step, amendments may be made to the policy draft. policy document is completed by attaching procedure and rules necessary for its effective implementation. It may be necessary to conduct or have an external expert conduct impact analysis if the draft policy is implemented. If the impact is as desired, the approving body would release the approval. In the seventh step, the policy is released for implementation on trial basis or in a part of the organization. It is not necessary to do so. Trial or partial implementation is preferred when the risk of organization-wide failure of new policy is too great to be borne. In the eighth step, in either case, the employees are informed and the necessary steps are taken to ensure that the employees read and understand the policy and commit to its implementation. In many organizations, frequently asked questions or FAQs are prepared, anticipating the user questions and providing answers so that the policy provisions are understood by the people as desired. Arrangements in support of the policy implementation should be made and briefings should be prepared. In the ninth step, those who are made responsible for observing policy implementation and monitoring it should do so, collecting data on the efficacy of the policy and the need and time for policy change. Necessary arrangement should be made for policy stakeholders to make suggestions. The degree to which employees are satisfied with HR policies and practices can be measured by attitude surveys. Together, these actions reveal the adaptations to be made in the policy in future. In the final part of this session, we discuss HR policy implementation. Even if HR policies are well developed by competent managers, their effective implementation is not automatic. Some of the challenges of HR policy implementation can be seen in a few items. First is, in a diverse organization, employees only accept initiatives they perceive to be relevant to their own areas. Second is, some employees would strongly prefer the status quo and not the change brought by the new policy. Third is, intended policy initiatives may not be understood by employees or may be perceived differently by them. Fourth is, employees will be hostile to policy initiatives if they are believed to be in conflict with their interest, for example, downsizing in a culture of lifetime employment. Fifth is, when there are inconsistencies between corporate strategies and values. Sixth is, when senior management is not highly trusted or the policy initiative is not perceived as fair. Seventh is, when the existing processes are not smoothly interconnecting with the new policy or the connections are not easily understood by the employees. The ways to overcoming the challenges to policy implementation are suggested to be as we illustrate next. One is a rigorous preliminary analysis of policy needs and requirements, enlisting the support for the policy, assessing the barriers and challenges beforehand, preparing action plans and contingency plans to confront those, effective project management, effective follow-up and evaluation of progress so that remedial action can be taken as necessary. With this, we come to the end of this session. In the next session, we will discuss discipline and grievance in detail. See you soon.